This evening we're here for a draft of the school reopening plan that we have developed. Due to the amount of speaking that I'm going to be doing, I'm not going to wear my mask, but I am 6 feet away from the next closest individual. And due to the length and the complexity of this plan, Mr. Miller and I will be sharing that responsibility of presenting this evening. However, before we start and get into that, Ms. Glad, this is your committee. Do you have any opening statements that you'd like to make in regards to the plan?
I do. I just want to say that this is probably one of the most important decisions this board is going to make, and I don't want to have anyone think that we're going to take this lightly. There's a lot to consider with this decision. First and foremost, the student, and then our staff. So I want you to know that I'm going into this educated. As a nurse, I understand the clinical part of this, so I just want to let you know that we are going to definitely make the best decision that we can with the data that we have now.
Thank you, Ms. Glad. And everything that you just said is perfectly aligned with the development of this plan. Our plan involves the best practices that are out there as of today. And just to give you some type of feel for what we're dealing with, just last night, the landscape changed on us as far as gatherings go and what we're allowed to do and not to do as far as wearing a face mask. Additionally, our plan that we have today is aligned with the Department of Health's guidelines that were released today an hour ago. I just got the updated Department of Health guidelines for school reopening 1 hour ago. The document that you're going to receive today has to be presented to the state and board approved in roughly a 40-page to 50-page format. What you have in front of you today is a condensed, easy-to-read schematic of what's in the plan. But the plan itself will have everything that you have here in it, in various places and various verbiage that the state wants. As mentioned earlier, this is in accordance with and aligned to the Department of Health and is aligned to the current best practices. As we move through the plan and we explain what's going on within the plan, I ask that if you have any questions or comments, if you could please wait until we get to the end of the entire plan. Make your notes along the way. Mr. Miller and I both, or any other department head within the district, are able to speak to you in depth about any question you may have on the plan. But if we stop during the course of the presentation, that may prevent us from getting through the entire presentation. And I want to make sure that we have enough time in order for everyone to hear and know what we're talking about, and you have enough time to ask any questions or make notes of any questions that you may have so that we may answer them. Just from a gathering perspective, we did put together a Zoom today, and we have put that out on my Twitter account. We put that out on the district all users account. So we probably have a good portion of people that may be watching and participating remotely. We also have Mr. Dupree here, who is recording this episode of our committee meeting so that all will have an opportunity to see and hear what we are actually presenting today.
There are 80 on right now.
Okay, we currently have 80 individuals that are participating remotely at this time. Getting into the document that we have, this is our draft here. And the first section I'm going to take, and I very rarely read to my audience, unless they're children, then I'm going into a school and reading to them specifically. But both Mr. Miller and I are going to read verbatim what's in our plan so that we can make sure that we interject what we need to interject as we go, and that you can have an opportunity to ask questions or formalize questions as we go. And again, we'll answer anything that you have at the end of the presentation. So right now, our reopening plan for the 2021 school year. The COVID-19 pandemic has been a tremendous challenge for our district and our community in many different ways. But we are confident that we will rise from this pandemic better and stronger for our future. Our reopening plan allows for a safe and reasonably normal return to school. Obviously, there will be hurdles and questions that we are addressing, but nothing we can't overcome. And most importantly, the health and safety considerations are at the top of our priority list. We also understand and believe that social interaction and in-person instruction is essential to our children's emotional well-being as well as our educational growth and advancement. No single precaution or set of precautions will completely eradicate COVID-19 or prevent its transmission. Our plan embeds the reduction of the overall risk of infection and spread with providing a quality education for our students. With the support of everyone involved, this can be accomplished effectively. Below and ongoing is a summary that highlights our reopening plan.
Thank you, Dr. Wallace. The first step for Laurel Highlands School District to reopen our schools is to create our health and wellness plan. As Dr. Wallace said, there's been a lot of time and energy going into this process, but we've also had to review the many departments, guidelines, protocols, etc., that we had to follow. In this plan, we've included the Pennsylvania Department of Education, the Pennsylvania Department of Health, the CDC, World Health Organization, and the American Academy of Pediatrics guidelines to help build this plan. Again, it's a very fluid plan, and there's a lot of information that we'll continue to tweak and adjust. As Dr. Wallace said, 3 p.m. today we get additional guidelines that we're already going to have to start putting in here. We have been utilizing multiple stakeholders to help build this plan. One of the key pieces that we did is we did survey our families. We did that June 22nd. And again, you guys know with any survey, your opinions or thoughts may change from time to time given those surveys. This survey was done June 22nd. At that time, we had over 1,100 families, and we're very excited about the opportunity that 1,100 families completed the survey. Just to pull the information, it is on our website at www.lhsd.org. We do have all of the breakdowns of the entire survey, all of the questions. Big pieces of information to pull out of that. 58% of the families felt it was extremely important that schools are open in the fall, and another 32% stated that it was somewhat important to their families. A lot of them were focusing on the traditional schooling as well. So we're taking a lot of that information into effect as we're moving forward.
Now, getting into the bulk of the plan, the new health and safety measures that we're going to be implementing. And just as we move through this, some of the things that we purchased with our CARES money, which was approximately $900,000, are systems that kill viruses and bacteria that set on the walls or stand alone. They produce ultraviolet light. I know a lot of hospitals are using those in their ERs now. We have purchased those for some of our classrooms. We have purchased those for our cafeterias. We have purchased those for our high fluid transit type areas in our schools. In addition to that, I was notified last night that the county may have an opportunity for us to have more money from their CARES Act, and I'm working with other county superintendents right now, putting together a plan to increase what we currently bought through the grant that is, the Fayette County Commissioners received. Right now, I haven't been given a total denomination of money that may be available, but we are increasing our cleaning. We are increasing our ability to kill viruses, to kill all viruses, including COVID-19 and bacteria. With that said, the parents and the staff will consistently be made aware of signs and symptoms of COVID-19, as well as preventative measures through multiple communications, as well as signage throughout all of our schools. Visitors entering the building will be significantly limited to emergencies only. Individuals who are permitted to enter will have temperature checks and will complete a screening protocol. Students who arrive late will be required to complete the same screening protocols. Plexiglass dividers are being installed in identified areas, main office secretaries, cafeteria lines, nurse's office, and other areas such as that. Symptom screening will be done by all parents, guardians at home each morning before the school day. And this is in accordance with the current Department of Health guidelines that I received at 3 p.m. today. No child with symptoms will be sent on a bus or brought to school. Random temperature checks will be done by security as students enter. All late students and or visitors will have their temperatures checked. All staff will perform a symptom screening on themselves prior to leaving for work and will stay home if ill. Students and staff will go to the nurse immediately if feeling symptomatic. New procedures, markings will be put in all buildings to limit high traffic areas and congestion when feasible. Currently, and this may change at any point, wearing a mask or face shield is required in Pennsylvania through the order requiring universal face coverings. There are exceptions to the order to wear a mask, and individuals are not required to show documentation that an exception applies. Parents and staff simply need to write a note to their building principal to be aware of this or their exemption. However, in accordance with the Department of Health guidelines that I received today, that will have to be changed until further notice. And I have to go through that and dissect it more thoroughly, but that guidance has changed as of today at 3 p.m. So that part of this plan will have to be changed before we present it to PDE and it's board approved. So as you can see, we worked on this yesterday until 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and already the guidance has changed. And we are dealing with a shifting landscape in regards to guidance from the state on a daily basis. And our plan, as presented, is able to evolve with that guidance. And as we move into it further, you'll understand and see how that is put into effect. If the order is removed, wearing masks will not be required of students while in school, but will be optional. Extended usage of masks often leads to discomfort, distraction, or mishandling or misuse, triggering a child to touch their face more frequently and causing contamination and or rendering the mask ineffective. Masks also make it difficult to speak or ask questions in a classroom setting. Removing symptomatic children, staff from the schools will decrease the overall risk of infection in a given classroom. However, students and staff will have masks with them at all times in the event that their use is required, including in a school vehicle if the individual becomes symptomatic or if the minimum social distancing cannot be maintained. Staff not able to socially distance from students will utilize a face shield mask. Staff will notify the principal if unable to wear a mask due to a medical condition. Again, a lot of this has changed as of 3 p.m. today. Some of this plan will have to change. We'll make our adjustments tomorrow and in the coming weeks before our board meeting. But the health and safety measures that we're implementing are in alignment with what's currently being put out by the Department of Health and PDE. Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Dr. Wallace. In regards to COVID cases, ironically, some of those new guidance from the state has changed. Currently in our plan, each case or possible case of COVID will be handled on an individual basis, as each case may have different factors that impact the decision-making process. In general, if a student or staff member is identified with COVID symptoms while in school, we'll address it in 2 ways. Under prevention, all stakeholders should not come to school and should notify school officials if they have COVID-19 symptoms, are diagnosed with COVID-19 symptoms, are waiting test results, or have been exposed to someone with symptoms or a confirmed case. The district has identified 8 isolation rooms in all of our buildings and all of our schools to separate anyone who has COVID-19 symptoms or is tested positive but does not have symptoms. Families should be encouraged to develop a plan with their family members to be prepared to bring your child home in case they are exhibiting symptoms. What we currently have when someone gets sick, and again, those will be changed to address the new guidelines. We will immediately separate an individual with symptoms. We will contact family members immediately and place the student faculty member in the isolation room. Areas used by the SIP will be closed off, and areas will not be used until thorough cleaning or disinfection. We'll advise sick individuals and family that they should not return to school until they have a physician's excuse and have followed all CDC guidelines of Pennsylvania Department of Health. The Health Department will also take the lead on guidance and contact tracing, isolation, quarantine of ill students and staff, and any further actions needed to contain the spread of COVID. We will notify staff and families of cases of COVID while maintaining confidentiality. We'll notify stakeholders of any closures or restrictions placed due to COVID-19. On the new plan, just looking, there are obviously a couple different things. They're asking that we add flexible attendance procedures in place for students and staff. We already have the isolation rooms. They're asking that we have provide school staff with necessary equipment to measure temperatures for any student staff who may become ill during the day. Part of the CARES grant, we've already purchased or will be purchasing that equipment through that funding. Using the isolation rooms, establish protocols for safely transporting homesick individuals. I think that's
A couple other things along those lines. The health department, in their current guidance for schools, wants to take the lead on notifying and contact tracing. That's something that may change on this one. It's a specific paragraph that I've received from them. They are taking a lead role in how they're going to do and what's going to happen with contact tracing. They want to carry that ball, and I'm going to let them carry it. We will do what we can to make sure that the faculty and staff and parents are notified if we have a positive case. Additionally, and this is the guidance that we received today at 3 p.m., that if there is a case in a building, they do not feel the need to evacuate the school. They have given us specific guidelines on how to clean, disinfect, and keep moving the educational process forward without having to evacuate and quarantine everybody in the classroom. So we will be adjusting this in accordance with that guidance that we received today. Moving into transportation, which I know is a big issue for a lot of parents. Buses will be disinfected on a regular basis. We are working with First Student right now, and they have a product that actually kills germs for 30 days. We're going to actually purchase some to use in our buildings. So any type of virus or bacteria, including COVID-19, cannot survive for 30 days on treated surfaces. I'm still reading, and I just got the literature on that this afternoon, and I'm reading and coming up to speed on that before I came here. But that is something that we'd like to see. Any bus that has been contaminated by a person with COVID symptoms will be pulled out of service in order to disinfect before returning to the fleet. 52% of the parents reported that they will be using the bus to transport their children. At the high school, additional driving passes will be sold to limit the number of students riding the bus. Each school is implementing new entrance procedures, 2 instead of 1. Procedures will be communicated as well as put on our website. Bus drivers will assign students to be seated, spaced out to a maximum extent feasible, with the understanding that masks will be required of all students while on the bus. Buses will be loaded from the rear moving forward. Siblings will be asked to sit together. Cohorts will stay the same. In other words, the same students will ride with each other each day. Those are some of the things that we just received today from the Department of Health, and we will be putting into this document and the ultimate grid that we report to the state this week. That does not necessarily mean that this is the end of the guidance. We may receive more guidance at a later date from the Department of Health and PDE, and as that happens, we will monitor and we will adjust accordingly. Our plan includes the ebb and flow that we need in order to make those adjustments on the fly, and I think we can do a pretty good job at implementing those protocols. Again, we've met with faculty members, department heads, parents, community members, in putting this plan together, and we feel like we have a pretty good solid plan. Moving into the cleaning part of this, Mr. Miller will talk and elaborate on that.
Sure, thank you. All individuals in school will be encouraged to sanitize and wash their hands on a frequent basis. Every school will receive additional hand sanitizer stations throughout the building. Sanitizer wipes, masks for any student or staff member who still needs them. We've purchased, or through the CARES grant, we've been able to incorporate in that main large stations at all the entrances, as well as the mobile sanitizer stations throughout the entire school. In that will include the wipes, the masks. We currently are purchasing regular masks as well as the face shields. Our Tech Ed department is also 3D printing the frames for those masks, for the face shields. Since COVID is an airborne virus, air purifying systems are being purchased, again from the grant, to install in the kitchens, nurse's office, and in high traffic areas in all of our schools. These systems will be able to disinfect and clean the air. In addition, these units have an ozone capability to thoroughly clean any space that may be contaminated by a person with COVID symptoms. Basically takes that classroom, close it down, It's a 2-hour process on the ozone setting to disinfect that airspace that has been contaminated, in addition to the cleaning. In addition to daily scheduled cleaning of the buildings, all high-touch surfaces will be disinfected regularly. Door handles, light switches, playground equipment, and student desks as needed. Drinking fountains will be turned on. Students and staff will be encouraged to bring their own water bottles. Buses and vans will be disinfected on a regular basis. Twice a week, all buildings will receive a deep cleaning in addition to regular scheduled cleaning. Deep cleaning will include spraying every building with electric static sprayers. Electric static sprayers will be purchased through the grant. Those machines allow us to disinfect an area because they're positively charged. When you spray something, it typically lands on top of it. The electric static allows it to go over the entire surface, so when you spray, it actually is able to go underneath and around areas that you wouldn't be able to do with just a regular spray on top. Our 21st Century Elementary program, after-school program, will be moved to a virtual remote learning in order to allow those buildings to be effectively cleaned after school.
And I can't really say enough about the air purifying systems. We had a demonstration last week, or no, 2 weeks ago, from the individual that we purchased them from. And the technique itself was developed through NASA. And through these machines, the air, they cover about 1,500 square feet per machine, actually attacks the virus, breaks down the outer coating, plasma coating, and kills the germ, or kills it. And they run continuously. So that's an added level of protection that we really feel proud about. And because we're going in with another district on purchasing, we're able to save a little bit of money there. So that's always a plus, and we're able to buy more PPE with that. One of the other things that we're considering doing right now is moving our custodial shift to all day, so we have the majority of our shifts in the buildings when the students are here to do regular cleaning, so that they can get through the buildings on a more efficient, more effective basis and disinfect between classes, and to have a more thorough cleaning of the buildings on a daily basis, in addition to the deep cleaning that we're going to incorporate twice a week. Another big issue for all parents and for us is cafeteria. How are we going to feed our students? Right now, we're in a grab-and-go environment, and I anticipate that will continue into the school year. Our air purifying systems that I was just mentioning will be installed in the kitchens to regularly clean and disinfect the air. Students will be offered a grab-and-go breakfast daily. Students will be required to distance themselves when sitting to the maximum extent feasible. Each school is implementing additional lunch areas and/or additional lunch periods to eat, and these new procedures will be communicated to the parents and students. Right now, we're moving from a 2 lunch period at the elementaries to a 3 lunch period in order to maintain that social distancing and to maintain that type of environment. And at the high school and middle school, we're looking at using some of the bigger rooms, like a third of the gyms, in order to open up that for cafeteria usage in order to maintain social distancing. Prepackaged silverware, condiments, and food will be used as much as possible, and there will be no salad bar this year. Individuals will be encouraged to sanitize or wash their hands prior to and after eating. And in accordance and alignment with the Department of Health guidelines, we are going to be embedding those cleaning and cleanliness type activities into our lesson plans with our students. That's what PDE is requiring. So students are going to be hearing and being taught how to adequately wash their hands on a regular basis, even within the classrooms. Now the big one. This is one I think everybody has been waiting for. We're going to talk about how will instruction look for the 2021 school year. We have tossed around probably 50 to 60 different models to educate our students. I don't think you'll find one district in the county or one district in southwestern Pennsylvania, or really one district within the whole Commonwealth that is identical to the other. Right now, PDE, the state, and the Department of Health are making this a local decision, which means that it falls on the school board and it falls on the administration to develop a plan that fits the needs of the community. And based on our survey results and based on what we've learned, this is what we are proposing to approve. As long as Fayette County is in the green phase, we're in a hybrid learning environment. All students will report to school 4 days a week with 1 day of remote learning. All students will report to school on Monday and Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. And Wednesday will be a remote learning day to allow for deep cleaning of the buildings twice a week with regular cleaning daily. On remote learning days, teachers will teach from their classrooms and take attendance through Google Sheet and/or students will be called. Remote learning will be made up of both synchronous and asynchronous learning. Students who don't want to come to school during the green phase due to anxiety over COVID will have the option of remote learning. In grades 6 through 12, students will either attend district-limited remote academic schedule, where teachers will be given 1 period of online instruction. Teachers will take attendance when the students log on during their scheduled period, or students will attend the Laurel Highlands School District CSI online programs. That's through our IU and our Fusion Flex program. In grades kindergarten through 5th, students will either attend district remote learning with identified district grade level teacher. Teachers will take attendance when the students log on during their scheduled period or attend LH's cyber program in partnership with IU1. And the Fayette County is in the yellow phase. This is the beauty of our plan. Depending on where we are in green or yellow, if we have to move back to yellow, our plan is still applicable per the Department of Health in that phase also. So we don't have to change. There's no change for students. And that was one of the deciding factors on promoting this plan. Because if we have to move backwards into a yellow phase, we still have the face-to-face learning for the students. Now, some of the things that I mentioned in here, we are still working with our union in order to clarify and make sure that there's an agreement on both sides. That has to happen. There's no way it can't happen. And we're still working through that. And I say at this point, we're probably about 80% to 90% in agreement on most things. And we're still having ongoing discussions to come up with a plan. So some of this may change a little bit between now and then. But the basic framework of the plan is what we're looking at doing. When Fayette County's in the red phase, I guess all of you know, all remote learning, all students will complete instruction via remote learning. Middle and high school students will log on during their typically scheduled class period. Elementary students will log on at 8:45 to start their instruction. Now, I know that there's some letters, and I've received some criticisms about how the online environment went from March 13th until now. We've learned a lot. We were not ready for the outbreak. I have been in numerous discussions with the LHEA team and our administration, and we've had very positive discussions on the staff time on task during remote learning days. And it's not going to look like it did in the past. We're going to have more on-task learning. You're not going to have, I know some of the letters that you received today are critical of staff that they're saying we're out tending their garden or grocery shopping when their kids weren't. We're getting 15 minutes of instruction and things of that nature. The program that we're currently looking at and that we're talking to them about incorporates a higher level of engagement between the student and the teacher. And that's going to be eradicated. I feel we're going to be very positive in building that bridge and gapping that bridge. And we're going to have if we have to go into a remote learning full-time environment, it'll be a very positive thing, as positive as it can be moving forward. With that said, moving into the classrooms and what the classroom structure will look like, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Dr. Wallace. I think, just to add on before I get into the classrooms, I think the other thing to realize is that the school districts were under great pressure to go to online as quickly as they possibly did. And teachers did a great job of converting and moving in a week's notice to the online process. Did a fantastic job of making that happen. And again, we have not been through this epidemic before, so going through the process and making changes, we can always get better. So as Dr. Wallace said, we're always working to improve that. In the classrooms, additional furniture will be removed to allow for as much space as possible to assist in spreading desks apart. Obviously, at the high school, we don't have as much furniture, but at the elementary level, we have a lot more furniture, so that will allow us to provide more space in those classrooms. Classrooms configurations will be altered for maximal social distancing as much as possible. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that class desks should be placed 3 to 6 feet apart when feasible. If this reduces the amount of time children are present in school, harm may outweigh potential benefits. In addition, the World Health Organization recommends social distancing at a minimum space of 3 feet, as 3-foot distance associated with large reductions in infection via droplet spread of coughs and sneezes. Classrooms and common areas will be ventilated with additional circulation of outdoor air when possible. And I think, more importantly, all of the procedures that we're continuing to work on and refine will absolutely have to be evaluated regularly in order to be adjusted as it is needed to meet the best interests of our students and staff.
Mr. Miller, thank you. Now, you got a 35-minute summary of what's taken pretty much 4 months to produce. You got a lot of information at one time. And we're prepared to answer any questions that you have in regards to what does this look like or what does that look like. So I'm going to start with the board first. Ms. Beal.
My concern is the elementary students where there is not air and the special needs students.
To piggyback on that and to answer that question, I was talking earlier about the extra funds that I was notified about last night through the CARES Act. As you know, elementaries, there's a challenge to put air conditioning in there, or at least the standalone units, because we don't have the electric capacity to do that. So part of what we're looking at right now, and I will know more next week, one of the things Mr. Miller and I talked about this morning when I told him about the extra funds, we're looking at putting a generator in each elementary school with those funds and putting air conditioning in those schools through the CARES Act. So that will air condition those students, and that will keep them cool. Outside of that, we're just going to have to ventilate as best we can and continue to do and operate as we have in the past. We'll try to do our best to mitigate any type of overexerting exercises. Students do need to play. We're going to get them outside and let them have that fresh air. But as far as the hard running, the competitive sports, like through learning soccer skills, we may scale back on that and do more like a walking type fitness thing to keep that heart rate down, to keep them from breathing hard. And any kid that's out running around comes in, they're going to have a temperature. It doesn't mean they have COVID-19, but they will have a temperature. And for the special needs kids, if we can get these generators or we can get these air conditioners, that also solves that problem also. But we are planning on having face-to-face instruction with them based on this format. But we built into the format an opportunity to do remote learning or to work with them in separate environments if we have to. Yes, Mr. DeAndre.
Along those same lines, that the elementary says it should wear a face mask, but the American Academy of Pediatrics says it doesn't. If it's less harmful, because if they're putting their hands on their face constantly, it's more harmful for them to have the mask on. And the same thing with healthychildren.org, the same thing. It's the same recommendation. They have the mask on, but if they are continuously touching their face, then it defeats the purpose.
Exactly.
So, and then along with those same things, I know the elementary likes to group their students in a group where you have 2 desks facing the other 2 desks. That's another thing they recommend, that they're all facing the same direction. There's just those few things on that topic.
Well, on the face mask, first, everyone that's a teacher has had child psychology courses, and a lot of other people may have had them also. Part of the maturation process, depending on your age and age-specific behaviors, involve that. You can't realign the human psyche because COVID-19 is here. It's not going to happen. And I agree with that. Unfortunately for us right now, we have to abide by what the governor of Pennsylvania has said. But we're going to try to mitigate that as much as possible. We're going to try to put in other types of mitigation protocols that if we have a situation where a student does not have a mask on, through the air purifiers, that's being taken care of. Those germs, if they're coming out of their mouth or coming out of their nose, are being eradicated and destroyed as soon as that happens. In regards to the spacing of the desk, everything we're learning now is to have group instruction, to have students learn off of each other. You're right. We're going back 50 years and putting desks, aligned in order to teach, singular teacher at the front of the room. The only thing that I can say in response to that is, according to what the research says, that helps decrease the spread as opposed to having them set facing each other. but this is a temporary type of environment. Hopefully, this is not going to last longer than a few months. That's our hope. And when I say a few months, I mean, I'm hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst. I could see 12 months of this type of environment. But do I feel that we're going to continually be in this environment indefinitely? I do not. And I think we will get back to those types of learning environments where students are engaging each other, and the teacher is a facilitator of learning, and the teacher is pushing out content, the students are taking it, learning it, applying it, and giving a product back that's a form of assessment. That's the best learning there is. I mean, it's research-based. There's no way around it. But during this temporary time, we're going to have to drop back and punt and maybe do some archaic things that we normally wouldn't do. But we're still going to have face-to-face instruction. We're still going to be able to put students in front of teachers and teachers in front of students, and we're going to be able to teach in a relatively safe environment. Yes, sir.
First of all, Doc, I want to commend you and Mr. Miller and the rest of the administration for putting this program going back to school fall, but I just have a couple concerns or issues. One, I did listen to Governor Wolf's message yesterday. It did say that he's instituted the 25 to 250 rule, and you want everybody to probably know how fluid the situation is. But on the, and I did see an update today on the website that he put out, that if the mitigation process wasn't followed, that he's prepared to shut the schools down again. The issue that I have is face masks on the elementary kids. I'm not sure how that's going to work all day with those kids. That may create more problem than what it's worth. And also, let's say that, Lord forbid, there would be some children with COVID-19 or some staff members. What would that entail as far as shutting the schools down, or what part of it? How long? And would the teachers, with the staff, would they be required to use their sick days, or would they be workers' compensation, or would they be covered? I think I read somewhere across the country that they already had that issue, and they did say that the teachers and the staff would not have to use their sick days to be covered. So
I've had conversations with the bargaining unit currently on just that issue. First and foremost, if and this is according to the guidance I received today at 3 p.m. I tried to go through this. It's a 16, 20-page document I received at 3 o'clock, and I went through it as fast as I could. According to the current guidance that we're receiving, we do not have to evacuate the school. We do not have to close down classrooms. The Department of Health will determine how and if those people, through contact tracing, need to be quarantined or not. There's a system in place that they're going to implement, and we'll be working with them, of course, wholeheartedly in any way that they need us to. And we'll follow that guidance. But according to what they're saying to me right now today, if you become infected and you're in my classroom, we follow the Department of Health's guidance, which means we isolate you. We take you down to the nurse's office. There's a specific room there that's isolated from everybody else. We're going to give you the checks. If you have a temperature and you're experiencing COVID-19 type symptoms, we're going to call your parents. We're going to get you home. If parents can't come get you, we have to send you on a van or on a bus. We're going to disinfect the van after you're on it. The area that you were in prior to leaving the school, that quarantine area, is going to be disinfected. They are recommending that we wait 24 hours to disinfect. However, they're saying that if you need to get to it right away, then we can. We're talking about a staff member who becomes infected. If a staff member becomes infected and using their sick days, what we talked about the other day is it may not be a COVID-19 type environment, so they would use their sick days. If it turned out to be COVID-19, the district would retroactively give them back to them the sick days that they use, so they're not harmed at all and they're made whole, and they would fall under the Families First Act, which right now goes all the way to December 31st, to where they would be compensated, and that wouldn't be an issue. So we've already had those types of discussions in those two environments. Did I answer the question?
correct. Thank you, Doc.
Okay.
I have questions.
Yes, ma'am.
I have questions.
Yes.
In the new health and safety measures, you said that symptoms screening will be done by all parents and guardians at home each morning before school day. I know there are some parents that they don't even know they have kids to go to school.
Okay.
I don't believe that they're all checked by their parents before they come. They'll send them anyways. I'll give you an example. I was in a store the other day. I heard a lady say, I hope they go back to school because I can't stand to look at them anymore. That's terrible. Okay.
before, let me answer that question.
Sure.
That language there is specific and aligned to the language that we just received from the Department of Health today. That's what they are recommending. They are not recommending that the school districts take on that responsibility.
I understand.
Okay? Next one. That's for the school.
Or the school bus
driver
driver.
can't do that either.
No,
They recommend.
correct.
It also says no child will, with symptoms will be sent on the bus or brought to the school. Well, how would the bus driver know if they're sick? Are they going to take temperatures of the kids getting on the
No, the bus drivers will not take temperatures. That is guidance that we will be pushing out to parents, that if your child is exhibiting any of these types of symptoms, you keep them home. You keep them home. And that's where our attendance policy is going to have to be adjusted. And to me, that's the small things we can do. Right now, we need to tackle these big things. The attendance policy will have, and I'm looking, Lori's here somewhere, I've got her on my list tomorrow to meet with to start looking how we're going to align our attendance policy to reflect any type of COVID-19 type of experiences and still meet the state required attendance protocols that we have to meet. And right now, as of yesterday, we still have to meet the 180-day, 900-hour elementary and 990 secondary school attendance requirement.
Okay,
Go
now
ahead.
in your prevention, you know, the kids are kids. They're going to get close to each other no matter what. They're going to, you know, be around and playing in the playground together the whole time. How are you going to prevent that? There's just no, it's not possible. I don't care what anybody says. It's not possible to keep your kid away from the other kid. It just isn't possible. And then you don't know if they're sick or not. And
We're
then-
going to have to do the best we can with those protocols. We're going to have to educate in the classroom. I'm sure that most parents have educated their kids now on some of the dangers of COVID, but that's going to be embedded within our lessons. You know, the teachers are going to have to teach the kids, look, because of these circumstances, you may want to kick a ball back and forth, but there's not going to be any touching each other, tackling, tagging each other. You may get on a swing and you may swing and things like that. You may climb on the monkey bars, but you're doing that on an individual basis. You can talk to your friends, but we can educate students. I mean, that's what we do, and I feel like we can be positive with that. And then in addition, after those things are done, we need to sanitize and clean those areas, which we will do.
Okay, also, will the kids be changing classes or the teacher going to go to the class?
That's something that right now I would like to see students move from their one class to their next class instead of teachers changing. But that's something we haven't really, we've talked about it, we just haven't nailed it down yet.
Well, the thing is, if they're all changing classes, one kid's wiping his nose on the desk and stuff, how are they going to clean all that right away? I just don't believe in any of it.
Well, that goes back to the air purifying systems that we have that attack and disinfect the air as students are in the classroom. Just if we had one in here right now, as I'm speaking or anyone else is speaking and breathing, if anyone in here was COVID positive, whatever was coming out of our mouth is going to be attacked and killed immediately. Those air purifying systems, that's what they do. They're not cheap. They're very expensive.
And then another thing, in the cleaning department, I don't know that we have enough custodians to cover this at all times. Like you said, you're going to bump up the afternoon to the daylight.
Right.
Then who comes in the afternoon or midnight?
We may stagger that so
working
that-
by themselves, I know, which we need to possibly hire more custodians to conquer the cleaning. And then I have another question about the cafeteria. It says that you're going to try to enforce them to wash their hands before they go eat. They only have so much time to eat in the cafeteria. And Bev and I have witnessed this so many times where the end of the line barely gets 10 minutes or 5 minutes to eat, go to the bathroom, whatever. I don't understand how that's going to be possible.
We may have to alter our schedules in order to make that possible. We're in a whole different environment now. So those are things that are simple to put in place, but that's the protocol and that's the foundation that we're going with.
Well, it's put very well together. I just hope it all works for you.
I think it can. I mean, I really do. I'm very positive in what we put together. This isn't just something that myself or Mr. Miller put together and threw out to everybody. There's been a lot of input from various people that made this document what it is. So I'm very, I'm very proud of it. I think it's going to be a workable solution. And I think it gives parents an opportunity to remotely educate their children if they don't want to send them. And we're also having face-to-face instruction on a daily basis in order to make sure that those students who need to come to school and want to come to school are provided that opportunity.
That's the question I have about the remote work, because they're all going to remote learn, whether they choose to do it full-time or at least one day a week. So what are we doing about the technology part? How are we ensuring that every child has a device that they can, whether it's an iPad or a Chromebook or whatever?
Currently, right now, I'd say 90% to better have those right now.
But what are we doing about the other 10%?
We're going to give them to them. As they come in, like kindergartners that don't have them, they're going to get them. For all those students at the elementary level that don't have them, we've just purchased through the CARES Act all that hardware to put in their hands day one of school.
What about internet access?
That's one of the things that we're looking at with this new money. One of the other areas, as a county, I'm trying to work with all superintendents and with the county commissioners on possibly taking some of that CARES Act money and having some type of stations or towers somewhere or a relay that gives everyone in the county internet access that doesn't have it. I can't account for those that don't. I don't know that this will or will not work, but that's something that we thought about right away. And I was just made aware of this extra money last night. And that's the first thing that popped in my mind was some type of feeder system that would give the county internet access for all students. We're working on that. If there are students that do not have that capability, we'll attack that on a case-by-case situation. We'll work with those families.
What I'm saying, they have the jet packs.
Right. Well, that solves the problem right there. I mean, just depending on placement.
My other question is just more of something that I think we should look into. VOTEC. Is there a way that we could look into sending them like they used to go for the first full 9 weeks? I think that all day. I think that would be very beneficial. It's going to cut down on the number of students. And going a half day, they're going out and interacting with kids from other schools in a different building. And whatever they're doing there, they're bringing it back to this building. I just think it makes sense, going back to what you said before, how every plan is different. I just really wish we would have worked more as a county, even with just those couple of school districts that attend the CTI, because that could be beneficial.
We had multiple meetings to look at some of those issues, but based on what the county needs are, it's a double-edged sword. There's not enough support from the districts to do what you're doing. There are a couple. I think AG wanted to go on that route. The problem we're having right now, and it's a problem we would have had, but it's even compounded with COVID, is most students, well, all students haven't been in classrooms since March 13th. That was the last day. When you go to a year-round or a half-a-year type environment at the CTI, that means they're not going to get any academic instruction from their teachers. So you've got some individuals that may not have had math now for a year and a half. Catching them up on that content is sometimes hard. That's why the model that we're using now, they get their content instruction here and they get their instruction through CTI there, and there's not any of that downtime. There's not any, in the summertime they call it the summer slide. There's not any of that slide where you would have, and what you're referring to as a block schedule type environment where they're in a block for a while. The second issue there is it's a contractual issue for us to make sure that we're abiding by our contractual obligations for our staff to teach our students instead of having them teach them out there. I don't know that the CTI is equipped with all the content area teachers to make that go. Now, there was, I think it was maybe you that asked about, well, can we send teachers from our buildings there to teach? That's a whole different set of circumstances that has to be negotiated with our...
Well, I'm just thinking, we're trying to make sure that we're not spreading this. And I just think that if you're looking at really upping the chances of that happening when they're going in between buildings like that.
I mean, shoot, man, just getting on the bus and coming to school, you may have the same thing, but based on the Department of Health guidelines, we're doing the best we can. And right now, they're saying that what we're doing is agreeable to them. I mean, we're in alignment with them. So I feel like we can put this into play and still educate the kids. I'm not going to say identically as we did on March 12th, but pretty darn close to it. It's a good plan, and but it's like it's a plan. When you put it into play, it may not work. It's like Mike Tyson said. Did you have a plan? Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. I mean, we may get punched in the face and it may not work. I don't know. But I can tell you we've done a lot of hard work to make sure that we've checked all the boxes, we've crossed our T's, we've dotted our I's, then we've gone back and redid everything again and even looked for purposely poking holes in it to see if it'll sink. And then going back and trying to bridge those gaps and plug those holes and put together a plan that's going to meet as many needs of the students as we can. And that's what you have. But you have some good points there as far as the block scheduling. I don't know that I can do that on July 17th.
I understand that.
That's a hard lift.
I thought it was something worth bringing up.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it works, but like I said, it's a double-edged sword. It works on one side and cuts you on the other.
The last thing I had on here was with the bus drivers having to actually seat children, and that's going to be taxing on them, especially when school first starts, trying to get kids in a seat and stay there. Have we considered maybe starting 15 or 20 minutes later because buses might run away?
Well, here's the thing. All along, bus drivers are supposed to seat their children to devise seating charts. This is nothing new. I know. So this is not a new concept for them, but now it's a concept that's going to have to be enforced due to our current circumstances.
It's a new concept, but it's something that never happened in the past. Really.
Right. But in line with that, I think the first week or two of school, I don't think we need to adjust starting times indefinitely. We're going to be flexible. We know there's going to be challenges. So we're going to take that into account. And yes, we are going to be flexible. If a bus arrives 10 minutes late the first week of school because of some of these things, the world's not going to end compared to everything else that's going on. We'll get that taken care of.
Along those lines, transportation, you still have that. Now that you're going to have we're now encouraging parents to take their kids to school, to have less on the bus. And they're saying that less than 52% will be riding the bus. That just leads me to that one huge problem on Derrick Avenue. You're going to have all the kids coming in and the parents waiting there, blocking Derrick Avenue.
We had a meeting with all principals yesterday morning. Was it yesterday morning? What is today? Thursday? Yesterday was Wednesday, yeah. It was yesterday morning. We're going to be pushing out to all parents. Your students will not be allowed to enter the building until 8:45. If you show up on Derrick Avenue at 8:30, you're going to wait. Your kid's not going to get out of the car and go sit in the cafeteria like they've done in the past. So there's no sense in arriving early. You might as well start showing up at 8:45 and drop them off. But sitting there is not going to get your student in the door any earlier than coming at 8:46 or 8:47.
I think pickups more the problem. When they're waiting there at the end of the day, out both directions. The buses come out, get in the line, stop. Then the buses are backed up. Then the cars can't get out. So it's an endless circle.
And one of the things we discussed last year to eradicate the pickup at that building was to not release those students that are coming until after the buses have left. So that's something we may, let's see what we get into, but that's something that after a day, we may say, you know what, based on what we're seeing now, if you're picking your kid up from school, you're not going to be allowed to pick them up until after all buses have left. Once the buses leave around 3:30, 3:35, then we'll start dismissing those students. And no sense in showing up early. You already know you're not going to be able to get your child until 3:35, but that will probably not eradicate everything, but it may help.
I
would suggest one other thing with that is we can get the township to erect signs that say no stopping or standing on the road on both sides, and then have the state police just come out and say one time they won't do it anymore.
I did notice
It's too dangerous.
the time that I complained about that, that when you had a security guard down there waving the parents off, get going, get moving, and they did for a long time, so I guess it's starting back up again, so that the buses can get out.
You have a question back there?
Yep. Yes.
I can wait, but this off the bus transportation. Question for the elementary. I mean, I love the plan. I think it's great. I think you guys did a great job. Elementary students different than secondary. My concern being that we have this controlled environment where these kids are coming in and we're watching everything. Most elementary kids on Wednesday with families that are working, if they're not in the classroom, they're going to be in daycares or with grandparents, meaning that they're going to be in a situation where they could be bringing other germs in. Is it ever even a possibility to consider 5 days a week for the elementary, just because they're going to be in other atmospheres where the middle and high school kids have the ability to stay home and keep themselves safe? That's my only question.
Well, the reason the 5 day, it was considered, but then, like I mentioned earlier, what was decided upon with the 4 day was because, as you see right now, if you'd said that to me 3 weeks ago, I'd probably said, you know what, and I think I did say this to Randy, maybe we ought to, and I did say this to Randy, maybe we ought to drop back and look at 5 days a week, because this is starting to plane out. But here we are today with all these increased protocols that the Commonwealth has imposed upon districts and the community at large. If we have to go into a yellow phase, that would be a whole different plan. Now, the plan that we have now, we're applicable to teach in green and in yellow. So we really don't see a downfall, and we don't see a pullback until you get to red. And once you get to red, that's going to be everybody across the state that's going to be at home. So right now, this plan allows us to be teaching in both categories. If we were to go to green and then we went to yellow, we'd have had a different plan. Now we're changing everybody's schedule. It's something that parents have to get used to again. They have to find care. I feel like coming out of the gate with a plan that is applicable in both avenues meets or helps parents plan as opposed to not planning. And based on the survey results that we got, that seemed to be the consensus of most parents, was to have something that is going to be consistent. And right now, we can be consistent in yellow and green, as opposed to having something 5 days a week in green, and then a week or 2 weeks into school, the governor says, okay, you're back into yellow, and now we have to drop back, and now we're at 4 days. It's the plan that we're discussing right now, and I have to tell parents that, well, now you have to find daycare on Wednesdays. At least coming out of the gate, they know what's expected for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the safety, like the extra variable we're adding.
Well, we're trying to mitigate as much as possible, but so are daycares. I mean, they still fall under the same protocols as we do, so they're going to have to be disinfecting. They're going to have to be cleaning. They're going to have to be making sure that they educate their children not to be touching each other. I mean, so, they're accountable also. It's not just the school districts. It's also other learning communities that we have throughout.
My biggest issue was the elementary schools and the lack of air conditioning and having to sit there for 8 hours in a mask. That was my biggest issue, and for the staff too, to have to sit. And I, as a nurse, would not want to sit in a mask for 8 hours like that. So that was my biggest concern. So it seems like if we can do the portable air conditioners or the window air conditioners, whatever you are able to do, that makes me...
I'm trying to find money for that. I'm not saying that's...
Well, I can't send kids back to school if we can't do that. So I'm saying that outright.
I concur with you. I've talked to some parents of children in various age levels in elementary school. And I was an elementary principal for 10 years at St. Mary's. We had no air. But I'm saying it's going to be hard keeping these kids in masks anyway. I've had parents tell me that their child, after an hour, they take it off.
Well, based on I have 2 meetings every week with the Southwestern or the IU1 superintendents. In our meeting today, they felt like, or the director of the IU felt like, that protocol may be relaxed prior to us getting to the first day of school.
You're just not going to be able to make these children, especially kindergarten students. One mother told me, she said, she'll wear 5 minutes when we're out or something, but right away it's all.
And that's where some of the air purifiers, and that's where we're focusing them, are the elementaries, because they do not have air conditioning.
I think that Mr. Sevig's right, and Mrs. Glad, the air conditioners and generators, that should be one of our top
Priority for the air cleaners.
We talked about that today. That's as soon as I know what money's available. I think we can get $20,000 per generator, so that's 4. And then the units are pretty cheap after that. If we can, once I learn, and I'll know more maybe tomorrow, about what money may be available to us, I may be able to make that happen.
You know, we need to find the money.
Right.
One way or another, we need to find it.
Some of
Somebody
that
either has to
money-
step back and say, we're not going to get as much as we got before,
Right.
but we need to do something to rectify this problem.
That CARES money, part of that has to be earmarked for air conditioners and generators for the elementary schools, or I
All
will
this stimulus
vote
money
to
come out of the
open.
federal government.
Just-
I don't understand how some dance band got $3 million in a school district, we can't get a couple million. And some of these people got 59 million, they sent it back. Something's wrong here. And I don't understand our legislators and our governor, why they're not reaching out to try to get the schools more money to do these kinds of things. But,
And it is imperative that our kids are educated. But parents need to understand that we can go to red at any time. So they need to prepare. And I said this on my school board Facebook page. You need to prepare that school is virtual at least the first 9 weeks. Because we could go to red in a moment's notice. They're now going to close real estate offices. So just heard that. I have a friend who's a realtor.
I think that's why this plan is good too.
Right.
To have that 1 day of virtual learning a week.
Right.
Because I think it
Can I ask
prepares.
a question?
Right, they just need to have a plan in place of where they're going to put their child if we are virtual.
I have a question for Mr. Miller. I noticed in this letter, maybe it said something about if this doesn't work, our plan doesn't work, our children are going to go back to the cyber school, not the Laurel Highlands cyber school.
Sure.
Yeah. What's the difference between that cyber school and ours? Is ours comparable to? What's that?
Yeah, so our program, you get a Laurel Highlands diploma. Outside cyber schools, you don't. You actually get a level 2 certificate diploma. In addition to that, the cost for the school district to send a student to an outside cyber school is a regular education student is $12,000 plus. A special education student costs the district $24,000.
This letter here, this 2-page letter from this lady, she's saying it doesn't, our program doesn't work. She can send her child to PA cyber school. Why would she say, well, I'll just put it in Laurel?
I don't know if she was aware of
I
that
can tell
option.
you why. Well, I know why. There has been a social media blitz. I received it from the IU yesterday. There's a group out there in order to push districts to have face-to-face learning, saying that even though a district may have their own cyber program, tell them they're going to go to PA Cyber because it costs the district more, and they're using that as a leverage point to...
That's what this lady is saying here.
Right, well, it's echoed in the other one too. It's the same language I saw from the IU yesterday and what's being promoted by this group. I forgot the name of the group, but I do have that document in my office. Yes, ma'am.
I actually have a few questions. Speak to that. I wasn't aware Laurel Highlands had a cyber program, so I don't know if people are saying PA Cyber. I wouldn't have known Laurel Highlands had a cyber program. I don't know if other people are in the same boat as that. That was one of my questions on my list was what is that program?
What is our cyber program? Our cyber program is in conjunction with our intermediate unit, and some of our teachers actually teach in that environment. If you work through that program, and it's predominantly 7th through 12th grade, it's starting this year at the elementary level. But if you move through or you matriculate through that, it's cheaper than going to PA Cyber. And as Mr. Miller said, you get our diploma at the end of it. And a level.
Get more information on it as far as comparison with
Sure,
That was my point. Why would this lady say,
We
PA
try to
cyber
promote
school,
ours.
we have one of our own, and she's a taxpayer in Laurel Highlands? Why is that even said? If we have our own program, why would you say, well, send it to PA Cyber?
We have some information on the website, but I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll enhance that website information so it'll be located there, talking a little bit more about it and some of the differences between those two.
Yeah, that's
That
all
way-
I'm just saying. If they would say, well, if our program doesn't work, she's going to go to Laurel Highlands Cyber School.
Sure.
That's okay with me, but to use PA Cyber School as a threat, that kind of bothers me.
Yes.
I just have a couple more questions. So I work at the hospital and face the challenges that we face. I don't want to say that you guys are, I appreciate how hard it is and you have done a good job. But I recognize the challenges of equipment and supplies. And listening to their presentation, really good ideas, but I'm asking, is anything solid? Where it sounds like waiting on the money to make the purchases to do the installation. It's a short runway. Is there hope that that's going to be done in time?
Yes, everything that we cited here today, we put in the orders for, and it's going to be paid for through our CARES Act. We have we have POs for all that PPE that we cited here today. That is going to be coming to us. Of course, we can't get it till we can pay for it, and we're waiting for our CARES. There's money now.
So is it realistic to think all that installation of generators in all the elementary schools and all of that manpower you have to have work done, it just takes a long time to have things done.
Well, like the air conditioners, they're portable units, so the installation won't take long. The only thing that we really need is the generator, right? And it's just a power booster, so
There is hope that
that's
happen. And
Right.
That's a one-day
Well,
job.
as I mentioned, the elementary portion, the generators, the reason we can't run air conditioning now in there is because our electrical system can't take the overload. The generators would bridge that gap. I don't know what money's available yet. I was just told last night that that may be available, and that's what we're looking to do. I should know tomorrow, possibly Monday at the latest, what the money is available. I'm looking for a meeting with some of the county executives to find out what is actually there. That money's available. I'll say, look, this is what we need. I can't expect for every dollar that they have to go into the school district. They're going to help businesses too, and I understand that, and that's as it should be. But that will be the priority item that we're looking for, are those items. But will we get them? I don't know. They may say, hey, no, we can't allot that amount of money to cover that cost. If that's the case, well, how much can I get? And then at that point, I will have a discussion with the board on what's available here or how we can bridge that gap. Right now, we're on a pretty tight budget. We just passed it 2 weeks ago. So there's not a whole lot of flexibility there outside of what's been already approved and what's been budgeted for.
So if you're not able, if you don't get the dollars, and you're not able to purchase that equipment, then it's not open, or what's?
No, my goal is to open.
If you don't have the air purifier.
Right, my goal is to still open as we regularly do, and educate our students.
the purifiers are separate.
It's too
Those
hot.
are already purchased.
My next
The
question
air
is-
conditioning isn't.
Well, the junior high, so I don't know, but we talk about elementary schools not having air conditioning. I've heard that the junior high doesn't
It
either.
does, it has.
It does.
Do the classrooms
Yes,
and
It was
everything?
installed
It
last
was
year.
just
Oh, yeah.
installed last year, brand new, should be operable in this fall.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
I have one question. What's the difference in the limited remote access learning versus the online program from Laurel Highlands? Is there a major difference between those two programs?
Between the limited and
So-
Yes, so the limited
Yeah.
is us basically, once we find out from which students in their scheduling process, which classes or which students want to go to an online remote class, we'll be able to put them in our teachers' classes, but it's based on the schedule. How many of those classes? So for example, if we only have one AP physics class, it's going to have to be a regular class and won't be offered online. So based on the number of sections and the number of teachers we have, that will be that. The online cyber, we have, additional options for them. That's the difference between those two. And that's what I'll put on that website as well, to explaining that piece. That's a great point.
I just have two more questions. What is the preparation for teachers to teach online? I know last year it was a surprise and everybody was shocked by it, and I understand it's hard.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that part.
Preparation for
The
online.
online teaching, the online from March
Right.
15th to the end of the school year. It was hard for everybody, and I understand. Has there been any preparation over the summer to get the teachers ready to be online if they need to be? And whether everything all of a sudden shut down and we'll be right back to where we were?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, after school closed, the students were done. We had an additional 5 days of instructional professional development for our teachers. They took advantage of those pieces as well. And ironically, you asked that same question. I just had a conversation with a professional development presenter in working with the Chamber of Commerce, and we're actually opening professional development next week for the entire 6 school districts in the county based on online instructional practices, building emotional rapport with students, refining your curriculum, utilizing technology tools for online learning. So just what you're asking, those exact same pieces are being rolled out right now, in addition to our in-service that we use before the start of the school year.
And I'm assuming that while you're asking that question is, you felt like your child had a lack of structure in the online environment last year, and what we've done is we have done a lot of work to really fill that hole so that you're going to see more engagement. You're going to see a longer time, a period between a student and a teacher. Usually, it'll look more like a regular school day if you're at home. It just will not happen in school.
Okay.
I understand. I get that it was surprising and new. It's the face-to-face synchronous classes that we're looking for. That's the piece that I want the teachers to be comfortable with. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the piece I wanted to think that is on that. I know you guys have plans for it, that's great, but I want to make sure that you can sit down with a computer and have a conversation with the teacher.
We're working on that right now.
That professional development class that you're putting together for the 6 school districts,
Correct.
that's not mandated by the staff, though.
That is not mandated.
The
However,
ones that want to go will go.
right. However, that was our lead into it. That starts the process for the professional development that we can use for in-service to start the year. Great point.
Can I speak to that just real quick? Just one moment. Can I speak real quick? All right. I just want to say one thing. I mean, as a teacher, I've been doing professional development all summer, prepping for exactly what you're saying. So, I mean, it's not just offered through them. There's a lot of teachers who are prepping on their own, getting ready. So I just want to answer that real quick. That's it.
Go ahead, Mr. Ransom. Just a couple. You're mentioning generators to run air conditioners. What electrical company has been brought in to make these recommendations of generators and air conditioners?
Right now, what we've basically looked at, knowing that I just got this not even 24 hours ago, we looked at generators that would be able to possibly run. Is Nick here? We looked at generators that would be able to possibly run those individual units, and we just based it on that type of number. We haven't done any studies yet or anything, but Nick, you want to add anything there?
Well, wait a minute. Hold on. So you're talking about generators to run individual room air conditioners? Is that what you're saying? Because I mean, generators are powerful.
Correct.
Generators not to run 9 hours a day for half of the school. That's not what they're making. I mean, so
No, it's going to have to run during the school day, and then it turns
yeah,
off.
I'm just real curious if, you know, you're talking a lot of wiring, you know, you have to do the code. Okay, so you just can't run extension cords out the window to a generator.
Oh, no.
So we're looking at a lot of, a lot of money. That's what we're looking at, a lot of money to run generators in these schools.
And what I would look at, and this is just because I used to live in a hurricane environment, and my parents, after the last hurricane in Virginia Beach, just got a generator. It hooks into and wires into our current house, or their house, and it functions if the power goes out. It runs and it operates everything in there.
Well, not everything unless
a large amount. I'm looking for a unit, and hopefully it could be powered through natural gas. That would be the cheaper alternative. That is capable to do that, and then run that extra surge that those units are going to provide. We'd be able to utilize that
We're talking
generator.
about putting outlets for air conditioners only in each room and feeding
The
them.
outlets are there. It's just no matter of plugging them in.
The Realm 110, this is.
We're talking about portable, small air conditioners.
I sell like a smaller version,
Well, I mean, yeah.
but they control, it's more of a power booster than anything.
I mean, I got a 12 kW, but it's not a booster. It's
Now, you're
wired
probably
in.
not going to-
It's wired in. It's got the transfer switch. Power goes out. It kicks on. It doesn't run during the day.
We're probably not going to get 65-degree temperatures in the
Oh,
classroom.
no, I got you.
It's going to be bearable. It's not going to be 88.
Might get it down to 70.
It may be 70, 75, or 78, but it's not going to be anything like your home central
No,
air.
and I'm just trying to figure out.
All those things have to be done. I need to know what I'm looking at and what money's available and what the cost will be, and I'll know more
So
about it.
if that doesn't happen, and to Nancy's concern, that we will open school and the little ones are going to go to school in hot rooms. If that doesn't happen, if these schools don't be generated, we don't put window air conditioners.
I still say we proceed with the
We're
plan.
still going to go.
I still say we proceed.
And I can't support that.
I understand. I mean,
I think we need to really think about repercussions of a student or staff passing out from the heat, hitting their head, and being disabled permanently. I mean, that's not a far-fetched thing. And we need to make sure how much learning is going to occur from a student who's wearing a mask at 85 degrees, and we know what those rooms are in the heat. We have been sent photos from staff in buildings looking at the thermostat. I'm not putting a child in a mask or a teacher when the heat index is 90 plus. I mean, that's torture. You wouldn't want to sit in that
And
environment.
the Department of Health is aware of that, and as what I received today, I keep going back to what I received today because that's all I can go on. Within that, they specifically address schools and the ability to remove masks from time to time. I have to go back and look at it. I don't know what that timeline will be,
So let's talk
but I
about
don't even know that that will be in effect on the first day of school and
the 8
everything.
million fans that teachers have to run in their buildings to circulate air. We want to talk about droplet transfer.
Christmas Eve.
Let's talk about that. We have to be realistic. We want schools open. We want kids in schools. However, it has to be safe and it has to be comfortable. And how much learning is going to occur in that environment? I don't think much. We have to be reasonable. I want kids in school. I don't want parents to think I want to keep students home. That's not the point. But our staff has to be able to have a child that's capable of receiving the instruction. They're not constantly thinking about what's this thing on my face, and I just sneezed, so now I have copious amounts of mucus in my mask. So I'm going to take it off.
I firmly believe, I can't tell you this with 100% certainty.
And are we going to have
that we're
red
going to get
biohazard bags
guidance
in
from
every
the
room
Department
for
of Health and
contaminated masks?
PDE that isn't going, that will help bridge that.
What I don't understand is, we close schools down when it's cold. Why wouldn't we close schools down if it's hot? What's the difference?
Well, that was gonna be my question.
Yeah.
Couldn't we modify to like a half-day format if it does get
If
really
it gets too hot, then I think in the elementary schools, then that should be an inclement weather day, and we should,
Can I share a story?
that's what I don't understand. We close them down when it's cold. Why don't we close them down when they're hot, when it's hot?
Since Nancy's talking about nose droplets, I'd like to share a story with you. A few years ago, I spent a month in the hospital with my daughter in the ICU. And didn't know if she was going to live or die. I'll get very emotional here. All because of a sneeze. A sneeze. She walked right into her nose, nostrils. She ended up in the hospital, and I thank God every day for Uniontown Hospital saving her life. The infectious doctors, the heart doctors, lung doctors. It's horrible to see your child laying there knowing whether they're going to live or die. All because of a sneeze. She caught the H1N1 virus that nobody knew about. I never heard of it. And it's not, you're sneezing and coughing. And like she said, it's all because of the nose droplets and the sneezing. We can't control this, and we're never going to control it. I don't believe that these kids can stand in a classroom, either grade school, middle school, high school. Nobody can say they're not going to get it. It's out there, and we will get it. One way or another, somebody in this could be possibly in this room. You just don't know. She didn't know either. And to this day, a few years, she still has the raspiness from the tubes in her throat. This is not, this is something that is so serious. And I just can't see you watching your child in an ICU knowing whether they're going to live or die over a COVID that you don't know anything about. You can read it all you want to, but it's out there. And I will never vote for a child to come back to this school till it's done. It's over. I can't do it. I will never do it. I would never want you to watch your child die in a hospital or even see it happen. This lady's a nurse back here. I'm sure she's seen it all. Nancy'd have seen it. It's not a pretty picture. So we really need to sit down and think about this, of what we're going to do.
I just have two things. I agree with Ms. Kathy here on, if it gets, too hot in grade school, well, air conditioners, like possibly, then we could just shut school down like we're going to hold it. I agree with that. Folks, if it's too hot, just
I
close the
just
school
don't,
for that day.
I don't see why it's a problem. Instead of having long vacations over certain holidays, have those days to be used up, even if you have to go a little bit longer in June.
The heat day. The other question, Doc, on the surveys, I don't know if you got any information on this back, but I did see where you said you left the option open, that they could come or stay. Did they give any indication what percentage of kids would opt not to come back? Would that be like 10%, 20%, 25%?
Any other specific numbers on that?
What's the percent they want their children back to school, Wes?
58.
58%?
58, extremely important, 32%, somewhat important. Traditional schooling, 63%, felt comfortable, 21% were neutral in the matter.
Was there any statistics on the ones that would opt to go online and just not come back?
I do have that, but that number's small. Bear with me one
I think it
second.
was about 3%.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot.
At this time, is your family planning to have your children return to LHSD? 15% or maybe? 3%.
Any other questions?
Mr. Scott, I thought you have a question?
Well, on the transportation side, we didn't touch on the CDC, Department of Education, Department of Health, how many kids are allowed to do. It's out there, but we haven't touched on it. It just goes what our plan is.
Our plan is to go to a seat, students sit together, to go
To a seat.
to a seat.
That's not recommended.
That's in the Department of Health, what I just received today. It is recommended. I'll send you all that in the Friday.
Their thing last week was 16 kids in a 48 passenger bus.
That's
That's
not
their
what
last
I'm-
mandate.
Right, that's
So
not
if we changed, that's great.
Today
Their last
changed.
mandate was, maybe Sean knows different or not, their last mandate,
Who was that?
Department of Health.
Okay, all right, yes.
CDC, Department of Health.
Yeah, that changed
It
today.
stated that it was going to be every other seat, you're no longer allowed to put 3 kids in the seat to make it a 72 passenger bus.
No,
So-
you can put 2, or you can put 3 if they're siblings, and I'll read it to you.
But that's great, that's my question is, we didn't address it on the transportation side, so I was just asking where we're going with it.
When I covered that, I said we followed the Department of Health.
Yeah, just didn't give the numbers, like I said. The original number, what I was told last Friday by a bus company, was that they would advise they had to follow 16 kids per bus. And they said they're just going to.
Here's what I received today, and I'll read it
So
to
if
you.
it's changed, that's great.
Yeah,
That's
load the
all
bus by
everybody
filling
else.
seats from back to front to limit students walking past students to find a seat. Do not seat students in the front row of the bus. Assign seats by cohort. Same students sit together each day, or encourage students from the same family to sit together or both. Use tape marks to show students where to sit. Minimize the number of people in the bus at one time within reason and to the greatest extent possible. Do not allow individuals, including parents, guardians, or other caregivers on the bus unless absolutely necessary to assist a student with a disability. Open window if weather allows to improve ventilation. Disinfect buses after each run. Thoroughly clean and disinfect buses daily. Provide sanitizing options on the bus and promote use. Have all students wash their hands and use hand sanitizer before or immediately upon entering the school. Send students directly to their assigned classroom upon entering the building. Do not allow students to congregate in the lobby, hallway, or cafeteria before school starts. Communicate that individuals who are self-quarantined or have been diagnosed with a confirmed or probable case of COVID-19 may not drop off or pick up children from school. Survey parents and families about their plans to utilize school district transportation services to better understand the capacity needs. We did that, and we're about 50%. Encourage alternative modes of transportation for students who have other options to minimize the number of students on each bus. That's today at 3 p.m. from the Department of Health.
That just a lot.
Yeah, I'm shocked. Number one is, I think we could beat this code. If everybody practices good health practices and does what they're supposed to do, and everybody steps up a little bit more in their jobs, custodial, bus drivers, everybody, I think we can beat this thing. Everybody has to be in their A game. And
I
washing
think this
their
plan
hands,
provides
covering their-
everything you're saying.
Covering their face when they sneeze and cough. You know, my wife worked for the Department of Health for 30 years, and she's on me. Don't put this on me, Jerry. But anyway, I'm just telling you, if good health practices are taken care of, I think we can beat this thing. But everybody has to be in their A game. So,
Well, what we presented, yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I do just have one more question. Is there going to, and I know maybe jumping the gun, but they missed a sixth grade orientation or another, they're moving into a new school.
I can't hear you.
A sixth grade orientation, is there any plan
We
to
are
try to
working on,
organize?
we are working on transition plans for the school year, kind of waiting on these guidelines to determine if we're going to be open or what grade level we're going to be at, but there will be opportunities at all the buildings in August. Not just sixth grade, obviously, kindergarten, et cetera.
Yeah, we have ninth graders on, yes. Yes, sir.
I think collectively, the board would like to recognize you and the staff for the plan that you have developed, and also for Mr. Schuster and all the staff that took it upon themselves for professional development over the summer. I mean, that tells us that at least we have a good plan to move forward, and I know I appreciate it. We all appreciate what.
I mean, I will say, you know, you get people, when all this started with COVID-19, and teachers often got an unnecessary bad rap because of teachers outside tending their garden, and someone thinks that they should be online teaching. We did the best we could with what we had at the time, and we learned from that. But I can tell you that my experience with the staff at Laurel Highlands is they're dedicated people. They strive to make sure that the best interests of the students are at the forefront of what they do. And I think we really have a nice staff, and that's probably one of the reasons why Laurel Highlands School District is the sought-after school district in the county. So that doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen haphazardly. It happens because of the reputation that's been built here. So thank you, Mr. DeAndre. I appreciate that you recognize them, because they do work hard. They really do. Are there any other questions before I move into an executive session environment? Yes, sir.
Dr. Wallace, did we give the board the pamphlet on the disinfection for the buses? We have our plan here. We like to
I just got that today. I'll put it in the Friday Focus. I think I emailed it to you, the letter I got today, this morning.
Mr. Albright from First Student is here.
Yeah, and why don't you say a couple of things about that? I'm really interested in the 30-day chemical, so if you want to take a couple minutes and talk about what you're going to do from a mass transport perspective.
I'll leave this with the board review. It's actually the email that you got from our president, Paul Osler. I'll just take these and pass it around and see the various options. Just to piggyback, if I could take 2 seconds on your question. For all of our partners, I can think of one school district that's actually putting one child per seat, and that's the city of Pittsburgh. The school districts, and you can correct me if I speak out of line, were given a variety of options based off of ease of implementation, cost of how their transportation would look when they come back. And I can tell you probably 95% of our districts are going to 2 per seat. Organized loading and unloading, as Dr. Wallace mentioned, with assigned seats, so there's minimal crossing. So the plan to put 2 seats is not abnormal for here, and that's approved through the state and all of the agencies and people who have to approve it. So we have 2 options as a company, and we'll gladly sit down and discuss with you which way you'd like to go. We have partnered with a company called Zuna, which actually has a cleaning detergent that actually will kill the virus for up to 30-day period. So it's a disinfectant. You're good for 30 days. Reapply the disinfectant after that period. If you choose to go with a more frequent option, we have very similar to a backpack you'd get at the Home Depot, where it's a disinfectant, sprays over the seats. We can do that on a daily basis, twice a day, whatever discretion of the district. As a company, we have worked with research companies, universities, labs. The Zuno monthly disinfectant has actually been approved through the World Health Organization. They call it nearly a perfect disinfectant. And so you can see on our website that's the bottom on this pamphlet, feel free to go on there. It talks about both products in detail. And you can see the ins and outs and the fine points of both disinfectants. But what we're doing is leaving up to the school districts. Some want a daily, some want a couple times a day. Our best practice, and we think the best product out there, is the monthly disinfectant. From an economic standpoint, from an effective standpoint, from the feasibility of us administering it, we recommend that option. But we'll gladly sit down and talk to the district, review costs with you, and determine what kind of frequency you're looking for the disinfecting buses.
So otherwise, if you do this on a bus on Monday, Friday, a child has the COVID, it's going to kill it?
Correct.
If they're infected?
I'm sorry?
If they're infected, they come in on the bus on Friday, that Zuno is going to kill that, the COVID on Friday?
It creates a barrier on the bus that bus will not be contaminated.
Okay.
I'm not a scientist. I
I'm
can
just-
tell you.
I'm-
I'll be honest, I was like, this is pretty
Yeah, I'm
impressive.
just wondering.
The fact that it's been approved to the World Health Organization, they're telling me this is, as I said, it's as perfect as a disinfectant as there is out there.
And they say CDC.
It's CDC approved as well.
Curious,
Pending CDC.
I think at the end of the day,
I was looking at the bottom of this plan.
It's
It's pending
more
CDC.
effective.
If you feel more comfortable on the daily
I'm just,
basis,
my own,
we can
my
go
own
that
personal
route as well.
opinion. My own personal opinion, I just think that after each bus runs, disinfect the bus and it's clean for the next day. I think if you do it once a month, I don't know how you keep that bus.
Fair enough, it's an option we want to present to you, and as I said, we'll partner with you whichever way you decide you want.
You guys should know better than I do.
I can tell you, they've worked on months coming up with,
Oh, I like the
best
idea
practice
too.
of what they
Every
want to
bus
go
or every van, you could do this once a month would be perfect. I'd like to do that in every classroom. You wouldn't have to be cleaning every.
We're buying some, we're getting some.
That's what we're deficit on, sports, they do these.
We're buying some, we're getting some. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Because if not, I'm going to ask the board for a brief executive session to discuss a contractual matter. Okay. If I could have the board in the science room across the hall briefly.
Is that room?
Yes.